Hey, so I was debating with myself for probably almost an hour, just trying to decide if I should even make this video or not. Um, and it's basically going to be kind of a reaction, sort of, or I don't know, yeah, I guess a reaction or something to a video Christoph Uncanny Deduction just made earlier, just before I'm starting this video, and it was about him being kind of disappointed or I guess upset with people, bigger channels or whatever that apparently watch his channel, not talking about or recommending his book that he just released recently, the thing about the Philosopher's Stone and stuff and other things. Um, Secrets of the Philosopher's Stone. And I just wanted to kind of, I don't know. Um, Apparently I'm like, I don't know, when I look at it, I'm like a whatever that dumb term is, like a super empath or something. Like in that video I could tell that he was like annoyed and upset to some extent, and probably felt like kind of betrayed or whatever, like, or disappointed by what he would presume people wanted to kind of hear, or people would be promoting and stuff like that. And just just in those emotions or those feelings I could tell from the video, I just really had his pain, his annoyance, his frustration. I could feel it just like I do with in many other videos he's made and other people have made and stuff like that. I could feel that pain or the frustration, maybe because I've also had those feelings as well, so I'm able to more empathize with it instead of just sympathize or whatever. Um but in this one, like, I can feel that, and I'm just kind of making this because I don't know. I was just like mulling about in my head. I was thinking, like, should I even bother making a reaction to this or whatever? Like, is it really gonna do anything for me or whatever thing? Like, is it really gonna help me in any way? And do I really think it's gonna help Kristoff in any way? I don't know. Probably not. But I just really had the urge to make this in reaction to that, and it's probably ironically going to be much longer than what his video was, which is like 5 6 minutes. Just because, one, I'm a very long-winded person for one, and I'm just kind of trying to as get my point across here, or whatever, my feeling across, without coming off as trying not to come off as something that I'm not trying to come off as, like preachy, or I'm not trying to really give advice here or whatever. It's just kind of what I feel like saying when I was watching that video, as I was listening to it or whatever. And I guess the reason I had this audacity up is I was going to do things while I was making this video, or try to at least, because I was discussing with myself, thinking, like, should I even bother making this, or should I just work on the stuff that I'm working on? And I was like, well, maybe I could try and do both. And knowing me, I'm terrible at multitasking, so I'm probably just going to be talking anyway. Um, which hopefully maybe that'll make it shorter, I guess. I don't know. Uh, but the kind of the main thing I wanted to say was, like, from what I at least perceived from that video, how I empathized with the feelings he was having, is he's frustrated at his work, that being his book, not being appreciated in the way that he thinks that it should be appreciated, or um regarded as something that is like important and stuff like that. And I think anybody who's created anything can completely empathize with that and understand that frustration that we all have felt when we put ourselves out there. We put something that we've made and put a lot of effort and thought into, and passion and sweat and blood and sweat and tears. um I think we all can empathize that people that have done those things. um but at the same time, I think that frustration we have to also learn to deal with, because I think that is something that is just inevitable. It is always going to be the case. Like, at least what I've noticed when I've done creative things, which I would consider most of my creative things that have had any kind of regard or whatever, like put out in the public, have been like some of my game or my mods for that game Daggerfall and stuff. And that's the stuff that has gotten the quote unquote most popularity or the most like downloads, clicks, and all that crap, which really doesn't matter at the end of the day. But still, you always kind of realize, at least I think, maybe if you do enough self reflection about it, is that you see after a point is that you the one who created it are going to be the person who is the most passionate, the one who cares the most about that thing that you've made. And even though that sounds very obvious, I really don't think many people that get frustrated specifically about this, at least at that moment, um, understand this fact, because they think that because they care so much about what they've made and they've done so much to put, they know what effort they've put into it, they know what they've put into that thing. um but they assume that everybody else out there does as well and feels the exact same way, which they really do not. Like, um and it, like I said, it seems obvious when you kind of like put it out that way, but I think many people do not realize that, at least maybe later on they do when they start accepting this fact, that nobody is really going to appreciate what you do or care about what you do by any fraction of what how you do. At least if you put effort into your work and you have standards for your work and you care about what you do and what you've done and you put passion into it, like people that just quote unquote create things that they don't give a shit about and they just kind of like throw it out there willy nilly without any care for standards or anything like that. There's plenty of people that do that. I've known people that do that, and yeah, like they just throw it out there. They really don't care. Um, so that's one thing. But then there's people like us or entities like us or whatever that have standards for our work and have standards for what we do and what we create, and care about some kind of form of quality and passion put into it and love and all that stuff. Um, and we think that other people should automatically, just by default, because we put so much love into that thing, we put so much effort, that other people should intrinsically care about it as well, which when you kind of come down to it, at least what I've realized, that's not the case. um like from that movie, I quote this, like, or at least I always think of this thing a lot for somewhat whatever reason when I think of this kind of stuff, kind of like the worry about yourself kind of motto or whatever crap. um that movie, I never even watched the entire movie of Jurassic Park, the original one or whatever, but the one character, there's like a scene in that I remember from a, for some reason I remember was used in a one of those old Ventrilo harassment videos where they just kind of go on these Ventrilo servers, like a basically like really old version of Discord or whatever. These voice chats for games. They would go onto them uninvited and then they would start spamming like stuff, usually like movie quotes or stuff like Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff like that. Who is your daddy? What does he do? uh, crap like that. But this person was doing Jurassic Park, and I guess in that movie, there's a scene where the character that maybe owns the park or something like that, or whatever, he came to talk to the computer password hacker guy or whatever, the guy who was played by that guy Newman from Seinfeld. At least that was his character, the fat guy, fat obnoxious guy. But this guy's trying to hide his identity as if people like give a crap about his identity. And then the guy Newman, he's like telling him like, dude, what are you trying to like hide your identity? Like nobody gives a shit about you. Like, see, what he's like screaming, Dotson, we've got Dotson here, like to everybody. And he's like, see, nobody cares. Like really, that's how I look at when I create stuff. And I get that feeling of frustration or whatever. I just think of, and so many other things like that I've done. Like I always think like we kind of think in our mind that people do care about stuff that we do or do care about certain things, and then I'm just like, when you get frustrated and when they don't or something like that, or it's not working as you kind of expected it, like this, like people are just kind of like zombies. You almost look like it. They're just like they don't give a shit about anything. And then I go back to that movie scene, um, and I just think about that. Like, yeah, see, nobody cares. Like, it's not a surprise. It's just kind of a fact that like we do certain things, but it will never be appreciated the way that we think it should be appreciated. That's just not how it ever works. Like, and perhaps it's hypocritical to some extent because there is examples where like say games or movies or books that seemingly the creator made and they never expected to blow up in popularity like it did, like I don't know, from that game that I could just think off the top of my head, Undertale from that guy Toby Fox, like became like a a, a subculture phenomena in indie game stuff where it sold like millions of copies and stuff, and people were like, "Oh my god!" And I'm sure the guy Toby Fox did put a lot of passion and effort into it, and it did blow up in popularity and stuff. But probably he would never have expected it, and maybe that's part of what where the success would come from to some degree, is that if you don't expect anything from it, just like in so many things, if you don't expect anything to come from it, that's when you'll be surprised when it does or something, or it does blow up like you didn't expect it to. But when you expect, like it seems that Christoph has with his book, which I can't blame him for doing this, is I think this is what everybody has done. They've created something, especially when they haven't done like that much beforehand, in that kind of form, I guess. Um, they would think that this is so amazing, everybody's gonna love this, everybody's gonna buy this, everybody's gonna do this or whatever. But then you disappoint yourself, just kind of like with the like the game industry and the movie industry and all these other things, is that people are now being kind of starting to slowly realize, like I realized this, is that a long time ago apparently, I think, is that you have to temper your expectations to be disappointed, or have almost no expectations for what you're doing, and that way you will not be disappointed in the end when it does not do, it's not successful, or it's not as big as you is not as big as you might have wanted it to be, because you're not going to be disappointed by that, because you were like thinking like, hey, my expectations are so low anyway, how can I be disappointed? There's no surprise there. But then the benefit is that when you look at it that way, then you're always surprised when it does well. And this seems like pretty basic stuff to think, but people don't really put it into practice that much. Like people are still getting pissed off about games, triple A games being released that are crap. Um, and it's like, well, it's because you got hyped up and you thought that it was going to be something more than, and when it's clearly the pattern is showing you that that's not going to be the case anymore. That's not how it is that you have to just expect that everything is going to be come out crappy or be much less than you expected, that kind of thing. So you have to temper your expectations, and I think it includes anything, not just for waiting for something to be released to consume, but creating things as well. Expecting um expecting people to care about your thing more than you do is just kind of an impossible. You're always going to be disappointed. That's how I look at it. You're always going to be disappointed no matter what there, because people, even though it sometimes can seem that way, like there is some cases, maybe this is just that these are just outliers, phenomena, or something, is that fans after a point seemingly could care about something more than the original creator does. Like the creator will abandon it, and then the fans will be more passionate about it after them, or something like that. So there can be examples where maybe that's the case, but I think generally, like 99% of the time, especially when it's an individual, not a company, or making a company or a team making something like a game or a movie or something, when it's the individual putting all of their blood, sweat, and tears to make something themselves, that care and expectations are all bottled into into themselves. Like they have no. There is like it's impossible for somebody else to care as much as they do because they're the one who originally created it. Like this is partially why I like to make, well, there's many reasons for that, but this is partially the reason that I like to make mods myself without really much external help from other people, or on like a team or anything like that. Just because one, I'm kind of like a misanthrope or whatever. Like I'm not a great team player. I know this. I know I have some degree of trust issues with people. I have some degree of lack of expectations of a certain quality that other people, um that I don't see them being able to achieve for my standards or whatever. Like I don't see I don't see a lot of people being able to satisfy the kind of things that I want in a kind of team member or something, or somebody else to work with. So I put, like at school, when we were doing stupid team projects at school or whatever, group projects, the more people that work on it, the proportionally the less that each individual cares about that thing in the end. So it's like if you have 5 people working on a project, then it's like each person has like maybe at most 20% of care for it. Like, yeah, it's disproportional how it works. Like one person might have 5% of they care, and then another person might have 40% of that group. But like when you're the only person working on something and you're the only person making something, creating it, you are by default going to have 100% of that responsibility or that care of that thing in the end. So 100% your expectations, you have to temper them even more because you're going to be 100% more disappointed when you overestimate how popular or something you think something's going to be. And that's just the kind of general thing I wanted to kind of say there. And you know, as this is not to, legitimately, this is not trying to be a dick here, but this is just me trying to say honestly what I think sometimes when I'm watching other people's stuff, um and especially Kristoff's stuff sometimes. Like uh the sometimes, yeah, for me at least, like maybe this is not the same for everybody. Some people do like arrogance. Some people legitimately do like arrogance because they look at that as confidence, and they look at that as something like they prefer somebody to be confident rather than um not confident. And arrogance comes off that way. And I know he mentions it, and he does realize this. You do realize this, that you come off that way sometimes. But for me, it does personally for me do put me off a lot, and it does annoy me sometimes when I'm like listening. I'm like, oh my god, like the arrogant tone in some ways, and maybe this is just me sometimes, but I know people mention it, and I guess it's hard not to mention it's when we're in the kind of way that we think in this kind of fringe group or whatever, um, fringe minority group, whatever, of how we think. But the anytime now that I hear like anybody mention like the possibility of solipsism and stuff, like it it always does annoy me because that does come off as one of the most arrogant things that we could possibly ever say is like I I have created everything. I am the center of the universe. Nobody cares. Nobody else is real at all, or nobody else is similar to me at all. The people on the computer, the people on the screen that I interact with, I can understand the people that you only have ever seen in text comments possibly being able to feeling like making that conclusion is like these people don't even exist kind of thing, like I created them. um that comes off as obnoxiously kind of arrogant in a way, but I understand why we sometimes do that. um but for me, when I do hear it nowadays, it does come off of very obnoxious when I see that. um and I think everybody has done that and thought about it. It's just it does come off of obnoxious no matter what, I guess. But it depends on the person. For me, it just does come off as very annoying to hear that. It's like, come the fuck on, man. Like to that, it's like anybody that is viewing your shit, it immediately comes off as like, all right, so you just called me a fucking a nothing. You've just called me you've just called me a NPC, a robot, and nothing. I don't exist. You created me. That kind of shit. And it's like, hey, you know what? If we look at it that way, we when we say that as an individual, we're really talking about like all of ourselves. Like when we say we created the universe and all that, or I created the universe, what you're really saying is that if everybody's a part of the same thing, then yeah, we you created it because we are all a part of the same thing. We've all created it. Um, really comes down to semantics, but it does always come off kind of obnoxious when I hear that in one of these kind of videos where people are talking about that. Even though like I said, I understand because I felt similar things. It's just when I hear it from another individual, another person, it does come off as very obnoxious and insulting to a way to like it comes off like even though for some people that doesn't matter. Like to me, if somebody's not respecting me, like insulting somebody like that directly without like much in a joking way, um it does come off to me at least as a show of disrespect or not respecting like me as a person or as an individual entity or whatever stuff. And then it's just like, hey, well, fuck you then. It's and then it makes me even less have sympathy in some ways, even though I should, because it's just like, hey, well, if you think that way, then why the fuck would I care about you either? Like, I don't know. It's, and I'm not even just specifically saying that for uncanny deduction or whatever. Just in general when people do that shit. Like I've seen in so many comment sections where somebody will say, "You were all a part of my dream," and it's like, fuck off, dude. Like we're all in the same fucking reality dream or whatever shit. Like you are all a part of my dream. I created you. It's like, okay, buddy. Like we're all a part of the same shit. Like trying to say that you're the fucking like a higher entity than others. It's like, come on, man. Uh, even if it, I don't know, even if it is true, I don't think any of that's true because I don't think there is any highest entity or some crap like that anymore. I don't look at it that way anymore. Like I almost see the idea of this is more not so much about the main topic, but I almost see it more as I almost wouldn't want to have the death worship thing like Matt still does, and the so many generic Christians or whatever do the death worship thing, or Howdy McCoskey or whatever, that shit, death worship, like hoping, oh, we're gonna die and then we're gonna go to like away from this horrible place. I hate this place. Why am I here? That shit, that shit, I definitely don't agree with. And I just look at it like, yeah, I've mentioned this in that one video I made like over almost 2 years ago, probably. That I don't see how why I would want to go back to. I don't see why I would want to go back to the place that I originally came from. I probably came here because I think I see that because I was bored as shit. Like being an infinite energy being and God or part of God and everything, existing as God as an individual like thing in this blank uh universe or existence wherever that us as God are in, like it would become incredibly boring, which would be why we would create a place like this to stave off that boredom and stave off that loneliness. That's how I see it as. So that the whole death worship thing that you're going to be going to some better place outside of this place. Well, then it's like, well, why did you come here in the first place then? Well, what is the learning process? What is the learning process, quote unquote, learning process, evolving process, really going to do for you if you were already came from an infinite existence, infinite energy being, whatever? Like, what is that learning or evolving going to help you besides where you where like besides the reason that you came here, created this place? Why would you want to go back necessarily? Because you probably left there for a reason. You, or at least my opinion, probably just boredom and loneliness. The boredom and loneliness of infinity, of no risk because you are a god. Like the idea of no risk means that I mean, hey, that's that Twilight Zone episode that my dad loves to watch. And it is a good Twilight Zone episode where the guy supposedly, doing all these bad things, like just a piece of crap, but then he gets shot and dies, and then he thinks that he's gone to heaven because they're doing all the things that he loves to do, but then he gets completely bored of it because there's no risk. And he's like, I want to go to the other place. And it's like, hey, well, you're actually in hell. You're not in heaven. You thought you were in heaven, stupid. You're actually in hell. Uh, and that's how I kind of view it. But yeah, I don't know how I got on that topic, but oh yeah, the other thing I was going to talk about is that clearly, uh, Christoph, he's mentioned that he's having some. At least this is what I'm interpreting, what I'm seeing. It's not very, to me, it's not very subtle because I've seen a lot of people that act like this and feel this way, but the insecurity about financial reasons and stuff, like from what I'm observing from what his videos recently, like him trying to sell his book and he wants his book to be successful, is that since he stopped working, he is not sure how he's going to be able to support himself, sustain himself financially now. So he wrote this book, he wants to sell the book, and he wants to be able to financially support himself from that to some extent. But now that he's, at least by his expectations, which is kind of the main problem, is that the having too high expectations for something that in the end of the day, it's like you can't have any expectations, otherwise you're always going to be disappointed. But so he's concerned about that, and I I can mostly sympathize in this case, not so much empathize, because I am in a situation. I don't like to mention it because people, I've mentioned it many times before, and I'm sure any people that are regular listeners to whatever crap that I put out know this. But yeah, I live with my parents. I'm neat life, or whatever, like NEET, neat life. I live with my parents in their house, whatever. I have my own money. It's just that in terms of the whole like mortgage thing, the, you know, not rent, but like mortgage thing, electric bill, all those kind of crap, like the house bills and all that crap, that's 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 them, like, or whatever. Like they're the ones dealing with it. Now, could I deal with it if I needed to? Like, I know that I would be able to because it's not hard to pay bills and shit like that. But I'm like, hey, well, if they're gonna let me live here rent free and all that crap, then F it. You know, just that's for some reason in America that is a weird concept. Um, Even though in South America that's a much more normal thing. It's just in North America it's a weird concept to have kids living with their parents, even though that's a lot of the case. But the point is that I don't have this. I haven't experienced the same. I've experienced similar thoughts, but I haven't experienced the same pressure that I'm like, well, I might not be able to pay the rent or whatever the next month or whatever, or pay the bill or some bullshit next month because of blank. Uh, I've not experienced that, so I can't really empathize necessarily with what Christoph is feeling in that sense with the financial insecurity thing because, you know, I'm living with my parents. And for all people that decide to not do that, decide to not do what I'm doing, you know, some people, they don't necessarily have a choice. Like maybe their parents die or some shit, or maybe their parents kick them out, or they're just complete pieces of shit. I'm not saying that that's what he should do, is that live with his parents, but at the same time, I've realized that with stuff like I've done fasting and shit like that, that we do not need as much as we think we really do. So that insecurity, I don't think, is nearly as warranted as we think we do. Like stuff like not paying bills. Like once you realize how BS that this place is, like maybe this is different than in parts of Europe. I don't know, parts of Europe and other parts of the world, but in America and stuff like that, like these companies and stuff, like they really don't give a shit. Like they really don't give a shit about being paid. Like they don't care about the money. Just like the money really doesn't matter at all. Like it's just how the society brainwashes to think that it matters and stuff. Like it's the end all be all. Like medical bills in America, people complain about medical bills. Well, just do what so many people do, get medical treatment, even though medical treatment's bullshit anyway. But even if you did, if you get a bill, just ignore it. Just throw it away. Like just like all these things, just throw it away. And what are they gonna do? Nothing. Like if you don't pay your house rent or whatever, I mean, if you don't pay rent, it depends if it's an if you don't pay your mortgage, you really think the bank is gonna be coming over to you like within a few months or some shit and just like, oh yeah, we took your house, and it's like, well, what are you gonna do? You gonna come into my house, rip me out of it? Like that almost probably almost never happens except in some very specific circumstances. Like people just don't pay their stuff for years and years and stuff. Nothing happens. I mean, sure, it's things like not paying your water bill, not paying your electric bill in some cases, like they could just flip a switch and shut it off. But in a lot of cases, go months and months and nothing will happen. Nothing will change. Nobody will shut it off. Um, the My friend, this is like an example. My friend that I or a previous my a friend that I used to have, his family, he lived with his parents too in their small like house. Um, and he had a grandmother or whatever who was pretty like sickly and everything, but they did not pay their, like, he told me at least, they didn't pay their electric bill for like years and years and years, and they still had electricity. And the reason was, at least in his case apparently, they would just tell them that, oh yeah, our grandmother, she's on oxygen and it runs off of the electricity. So basically, like, you know, if you shut off the electricity, you're going to be killing our grandmother. Um, and I think they even probably kept doing that after she died already or something. But I don't know. There's so many things that you can do to kind of like get around these things. Like me, I think about with the food and stuff, like the food thing or whatever. I mean, one, the fasting is that you don't need to eat nearly as much as we think we do. Fasting and dry fasting and everything. So the starvation thing is actually much less likely than people love to worry about and say that, oh man, I'm not gonna be able to eat. And it's like, man, nobody in these modern societies is like ever going to actually legitimately starve on the streets. Like, if you were actually in that situation, there were people that be actually like coming up to shove food in your mouth. Like, that's just how people are. It's strange. They're not as uncaring as people think. Like, they actually, I don't know. It's like, if you like, that's why people give money to beggars and stuff. Like, I don't know the reason exactly. It's just how it is. But like, the idea of starvation is just BS. Like, in my opinion, in this society that we're in, it's just like, it's BS. It's nonsense. Like, go dumpster diving. I don't know. I don't know how, like I said, I don't know how it is in places like wherever Christoph said he is now, in either Lithuania or Sweden now. I forget. But I don't know, if you really feel that insecure about it, just try and make yourself not feel insecure about it by doing stuff like that, like dumpster diving, and see how surreal it is to go to a dumpster that is just full of shit that they just threw out, or even just, I'm not going to say the exact word because I don't want to make myself look like anything or whatever, but even stuff like borrowing, quote unquote. Go to a store that, just a big chain store, and just borrow plenty of stuff. Like, they'll just let you borrow it. And you'd be surprised. No one gives a shit. You can just walk in, take what you want, and walk out. Now, I'm not saying like doing like crazy amounts of stuff, but just, you'd be surprised. And I don't know that, like, you yourself has mentioned about the shadow side and stuff like that, and especially the Silent Hunter. He's mentioned the kind of morality BS, but it feels like I'm the one of the only people that really, at least that I'm like saying right now, it feels like I'm one of the few people that legitimately puts these things into practice. Like, I remember the shadow side stuff that Christoph was talking about for a little bit, and I made a video about that a while back. Um, and like, I don't know, the morality thing. Like, we're still, people are so brainwashed still by it. Like, is it really that bad to borrow from a place that throws out their crap anyway? Is it really that bad to go dumpster diving? Is it really that bad to not pay BS bills or not pay taxes or stuff like that? Like, is the idea of that really that? And once again, it's different here because I'm in a, right now, a pretty warm house. Like, I mean, I'm a little bit cold because it's cold out, but I'm in a warm house with electricity, and I'm able to do my daily routine stuff that I like to do. I live with my parents, so I know that I'm fairly secure in that sense because they're, quote unquote, secure enough in that crap. I got a decent amount of my own money right now, and even then, I still thought about it sometimes. It just comes up as a dumb little worry, but so yeah, I can't completely empathize with that because I'm not in that. I haven't been in that situation. I haven't put myself into that situation. Um, look at that as you will. Um, but I don't know, with that insecurity of that kind of thing, not thinking that you're going to be supported, thinking that people don't appreciate your work. Um, it's just kind of like an inevitability. I think the insecurity thing, especially the financial stuff, can be learned out of. And I know that Christoph respects the idea of the economy much more than I do, where I legitimately think it is complete BS. Like, he has a much more of a uh curiosity about the economy stuff, but I've just completely like thrown it out the window. Like, it's almost all BS. Like, the stuff comes from nowhere. The stuff just appears. Like, there is no supply and demand rules and stuff like that. It's all horse shit. Um, but like, yeah, it's, I know we're much different in that way, but that's just kind of my, I don't want to say advice that I'm giving because I'm not giving advice because I don't like to give advice anymore. I realize that advice doesn't work because people don't listen, or people, not so much people don't listen to what other people really say or intend to mean or whatever. It's just kind of, we all listen to ourselves at the end of the day. So what I'm saying here I know that probably won't get anywhere with anybody listening to this. I'm just doing it because mostly in a selfish way, honestly, when I think about it, because I felt bad when Christoph made that video. I felt his pain. I felt I felt his pain, and I wanted to make a video to uh release the emotion I was feeling from that, I guess. Um so that's why I made this. So I don't legitimately think that anybody is going to actually learn anything from this or gain anything from this. I mean, I guess if they do, that's nice. I don't think Kristoff is going to give a shit at the end of the day. Maybe he'll listen and be, but do I really think he's going to take it to heart? I don't know. All I know is I really made this because I felt his pain from his video, and I was like, I felt like making this and talking about it. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it's been like 40 something minutes already, so I guess that's all I had to say. I'm probably just gonna release this without doing much editing because I don't feel like spending like an hour listening through this just to edit it and everything. So yeah, lazy stuff, but that's what I felt like saying. But yeah, have a good one, I guess, and take care, everybody.